The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Representatives from 17 different species sat in their designated seats, arranged in a massive circle that floated above the clouds of Vareth Prime. The orbital station hummed with energy, but no one spoke. No one moved. They had all come here for one reason, and that reason filled every heart with dread. The HFY had finally been captured. High Counselor Mira of the Celestine Collective stood at the center of the chamber. Her body was tall and thin, almost like a pillar of living glass. Thousands of tiny tendrils covered her head, and they glowed with soft blue light when she was calm. Right now, they flickered between blue and dark purple. She was afraid. "Fellow counselors," she began, her voice echoing through the chamber. 300 years ago, the creature known as the HFY first appeared in our galaxy. Since that day, it has killed more than 2 million sentient beings across 47 worlds. She paused to let the number sink in. 2 million lives. Entire cities erased. Colonies abandoned. The HFY was not just a predator. It was a force of nature, a living nightmare that had haunted the galaxy for 3 centuries. "We have tried everything," Mira continued. "The Valorian Empire sent their finest soldiers, 5,000 warriors in powered armor, carrying weapons that could crack planets. The HFY killed them all in less than an hour." Ambassador Crix of the Valorian Empire lowered his head in shame. His people were known throughout the galaxy as the greatest warriors. They had conquered 100 worlds, but against the HFY, they had been nothing more than prey. "The Drexian Dominion offered their hunter clans," Mira said. "Warriors bred for combat, enhanced with cybernetic implants, trained from birth to kill. The HFY tore them apart like they were children." Ambassador Drexal said nothing. His metallic face showed no emotion, but everyone knew the truth. The Drexians had lost their best hunters. They had lost their pride. "Even the Celestine Collective attempted to stop this creature," Mira admitted. "We used our most advanced technology. We tried molecular disintegration, which can reduce any matter to atoms. The HFY regenerated within minutes. We tried neural erasure, which can destroy any brain. The creature rebuilt its mind in hours. We even used the forbidden antimatter protocol, which is powerful enough to destroy a small moon." She paused again. The HFY absorbed the energy and grew stronger. A wave of despair washed through the chamber. Species that had fought wars against each other for thousands of years now shared the same hopeless expression. They had tried everything. They had failed everything, and now the monster sat in a prison on the moon of Calyx 7, waiting. "We captured it through sacrifice," Mira said softly. 12 ships and 800 brave souls gave their lives to trap the creature in a containment field. But the field is weakening. In less than 30 cycles, the HFY will break free, and when it does, it will be angry. The chamber erupted into chaos. Counselors shouted at each other. Some demanded more weapons. Others suggested fleeing to distant galaxies. A few simply wept. In the far corner of the chamber, almost invisible in the shadows, sat the human delegation. Humanity was new to the galactic stage. They had only discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago. Their technology was primitive compared to the ancient empires. Their bodies were soft and weak. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. Most species considered them barely worth noticing. There were only 3 humans in the delegation, 2 men and 1 woman. They sat quietly, watching the chaos unfold around them. The woman was named Lucy Grant. She was not tall. She was not muscular. She looked almost fragile compared to the massive aliens around her. Her hair was dark and tied back in a simple knot. Her eyes were gray, the color of storm clouds, and they never seemed to blink. She wore simple clothes, no armor, no fancy uniform. Just practical fabric in dark colors. She had been listening carefully to everything. Now she stood up. "I'll handle it," she said. Her voice was not loud, but somehow it cut through all the noise. The chamber fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes turned to look at the small human woman who had dared to speak. High Counselor Mira's tendrils flickered with confusion. I'm sorry. Who are you? Close. My name is Lucy Grant, she said calmly. I'm from Earth, and I'll kill your monster for you. For a moment, no one reacted. Then Ambassador Drexel began to laugh. It was an ugly sound, like metal scraping against metal. You? He said. A soft little primate from some backwater planet? The Kethval has killed the greatest warriors in the galaxy. What could you possibly do? Lucy did not seem offended. She did not seem angry. She simply looked at the Drexian ambassador, with those calm gray eyes. Your warriors failed because they fought like warriors, she said. They charged at the creature with big weapons and loud war cries. They tried to overpower it. They tried to be stronger than it. She shook her head slowly. That was stupid. The chamber gasped. No one spoke to a Drexian ambassador that way. Drexel's metal face twisted with rage. How dare you? The Kethval is bigger than you, Lucy continued, ignoring his anger. It's stronger than you. It's faster than you. It can heal from any wound. If you fight it on its terms, you will lose. Every time. She paused. But I don't fight on anyone's terms but my own. High Counselor Mira leaned forward, her tendrils now glowing with curiosity. What exactly are you proposing? Lucy reached into her jacket and pulled out a small metal object. It was a bullet, no larger than a human finger, made of dense tungsten. One shot, she said. That's all I need. The counselors stared at the tiny piece of metal. It looked like a toy compared to the massive weapons they were used to. The Kethval regenerates from energy damage, Lucy explained. Plasma, lasers, antimatter. These are all forms of energy. The creature has evolved to absorb and redirect energy. That's why your weapons don't work. She held up the bullet. But this is not energy. This is just metal. I will fire it from a railgun at 17 kilometers per second. No energy signature. No warning, just pure physical force, delivered to exactly the right spot. And where is this right spot? Mira asked. I've studied your data on the creature, Lucy said. There's a gap in its armor, just below the primary brainstem. It's small, about the size of my fist, but it's there, Drexel scoffed. Even if such a weakness exists, no one could hit a target that small on a moving creature. Lucy looked at him with those cold, steady eyes. I can, she said simply. I've never missed. The chamber fell into stunned silence. This small, fragile human stood before the most powerful species in the galaxy, claiming she could do what armies had failed to do. High Counselor Mira studied her for a long moment. You truly believe you can kill the Kethval? Lucy nodded once. Send me to Calyx 7. Give me one clear shot, and your nightmare ends today. The meeting ended in confusion. Half the council thought Lucy Grant was insane, the other half thought she was joking. But High Counselor Mira had seen something in those gray eyes, something that made her willing to take a chance. You have permission to try, Mira had said. But understand this, human. If you fail, the Kethval will be free, and it will remember who tried to kill it. Lucy had simply nodded. Then I won't fail. Now she stood in the hangar bay of the human ship. The UES Nightfall. It was a small vessel. Nothing compared to the massive warships of the galactic empires, but it was fast, quiet, and equipped with the best technology Earth could offer. Her partner, Ben Torres, was already there. He was a tall man, with brown skin and kind eyes. His hands were rough from years of working with machinery and weapons. He had been Lucy's spotter for the last 15 years, ever since the Pacific conflict back on Earth. You really volunteered us for this? He asked, shaking his head. Fighting an unkillable space monster? Lucy smiled slightly. It was a rare expression on her face. You can stay on the ship if you want. And miss all the fun? No way. Ben opened a long black case that sat on the workbench. Inside, resting on soft foam, was a rifle unlike any other. It was called the Whisper. Lucy had designed it herself, working with the best engineers on Earth. The barrel was nearly 2 meters long, made from materials that could withstand incredible forces. The firing mechanism used electromagnetic rails instead of traditional explosives. When activated, it could launch a small tungsten rod at speeds that made plasma weapons look slow. Lucy ran her fingers along the barrel. She knew every part of this weapon. She had cleaned it 1,000 times. Fired it 10,000 times. It was an extension of her body, as familiar as her own hands. "Tell me about Earth," said a voice from the doorway. Lucy turned to see High Counselor Mira standing at the entrance to the hangar. The alien's tendrils glowed with soft curiosity. Several other counselors stood behind her, watching from a safe distance. "What do you want to know?" Lucy asked. "Your species is so young," Mira said. "You discovered space travel only 50 years ago. Yet you speak of killing a creature that has defeated ancient empires. Where does this confidence come from?" "Where does this confidence come from?" Lucy considered the question. She set down the rifle and turned to face the counselor fully. "Do you know what a deathworld is?" she asked. Mira's tendrils flickered. "A planet with extreme conditions. High gravity, dangerous atmosphere, hostile wildlife. Earth is a death world," Lucy said. "Not by your standards, maybe, but by any reasonable measure. Our planet has been trying to kill us since the day we evolved." She began to walk slowly around the hangar as she spoke. The aliens watched her every move. "Our planet has earthquakes that can level cities, storms that can destroy entire coastlines, floods, droughts, ice ages that last thousands of years. The air itself is filled with tiny organisms that can kill us if they get inside our bodies. Disease," Ben added. "Bacteria, viruses, things so small you can't even see them," Lucy nodded. "And that's just the planet itself. The animals are worse. We share our world with creatures that have claws, fangs, venom, armor, predators that can outrun us, overpower us, tear us apart." Mira's tendrils darkened with concern. "How did your species survive?" Lucy stopped walking and looked directly at the counselor. "We learned to think. We learned to plan. And most importantly, we learned to wait." She picked up the tungsten bullet from the workbench and held it up to the light. "Most predators on Earth rely on speed and strength. They chase their prey, catch it, kill it, fast and direct. But humans?" She shook her head. "We're not the fastest. We're not the strongest. So we developed a different strategy. Persistence hunting," Ben said. "It's how our ancestors survived for millions of years." Lucy nodded. "We would pick a target and follow it. Not run after it. Just follow. Walk. Track. Watch. The animal would run away, and we would keep walking. It would run again, and we would keep walking. Hours would pass. Days sometimes. The animal would get tired. It would overheat. It would make mistakes. And we would just keep walking." She set the bullet down carefully. "Eventually, the animal would collapse from exhaustion. And then we would kill it. Not with strength. Not with speed. With patience." Mira stared at her with something like wonder. "You hunted your prey by simply refusing to stop." "Yes," Lucy said. "And we got very good at it. We learned to read tracks, to predict behavior, to wait for the perfect moment. We developed tools that let us kill from a distance, so we never had to get close to dangerous animals." She gestured to the rifle. "This weapon is just the latest version of that same idea. I don't need to be stronger than the Kethval. I don't need to be faster. I just need one clear shot." Ambassador Drexel pushed his way forward. His metal face showed contempt. "Pretty words," he said. "But the Kethval is not some simple animal. It has intelligence. It has survived for 300 years against the most advanced species in the galaxy." "I know," Lucy said calmly. "That's what makes this interesting." She turned back to her rifle and began checking the scope. It was a custom optical system that could show her targets from several kilometers away, adjusting for wind, gravity, and atmospheric distortion. The Kethvol expects enemies to fight like you do, she said without looking up. Charging in with armies and weapons. Making noise. Showing force. That's how predators fight. But I'm not a predator. She looked over her shoulder at the Drexian ambassador. I'm something worse. I'm a human hunter. I will find a position where the creature cannot see me or smell me or sense me in any way. I will wait there for as long as it takes. Hours. Days. However long I need, and when the moment is right, I will put a piece of metal through its brain before it even knows I exist. The hanger fell silent. Ben finished his own preparations and closed the weapon case. Ship's ready when you are, Ghost. Lucy raised an eyebrow at him. She did not like that nickname. But she said nothing. High Counselor Mira stepped forward. Ghost? It's what they called her back on Earth, Ben explained. During the Pacific conflict. 17 confirmed kills from distances that should have been impossible. No one ever saw her. No one ever heard her. The enemy thought they were being hunted by a spirit. Lucy picked up the rifle case and walked toward the ship. I'm not a ghost, she said quietly. I'm just very good at being invisible. She paused at the door and looked back at the assembled aliens. Prepare your celebration, she said. When I return, the Kethval will be dead. Then she disappeared into the ship, and the door closed behind her. Calyx 7 was a nightmare made solid. The moon hung in the darkness of space like a wound in reality. Its surface was covered in sharp black rocks that looked like broken glass. Yellow clouds of poison gas drifted across the landscape, carried by winds that never stopped screaming. The gravity was heavier than Earth's, making every step feel like walking through water. Lucy stood at the edge of the landing zone and studied the terrain through her scope. The UES Nightfall had dropped her on a ridge overlooking a vast valley. Somewhere down there, the Kethval was waiting. Comcheck. Ben's voice crackled in her ear. The communication implant buried under her skin translated his words directly into her brain. Can you hear me? Loud and clear, Lucy replied softly. Good. I'm in stable orbit above your position. Got you on thermal imaging. There was a pause. Lucy, this place is horrible. Are you sure about this? She began walking down from the ridge, her boots crunching on the black rocks. I'm already here. Little late to ask that question. Fair point. The prison zone where the Kethval had been released covered about 50 square kilometers. It was surrounded by force fields that would vaporize anything that tried to cross them. The creature was trapped inside. But so was Lucy. Until one of them was dead, neither could leave. She moved slowly and carefully. The heavy gravity made her muscles burn. But she had trained for this. Earth's military had special programs that taught soldiers to fight in different environments. Lucy had completed all of them. The wind howled around her, throwing dust and small rocks into the air. She pulled a thin mask over her face to protect her lungs from the toxic atmosphere. Her suit had been designed to handle extreme conditions. But she could still feel the cold seeping through. Council's watching, Ben reported. They've got cameras all over the zone. About 200 observers are tuned in right now. Let them watch, Lucy said. They wanted a show. She found a good position on a rocky outcrop about 3 kilometers from the valley floor. The black stone formed natural cover, hiding her body from view. She lay flat on her stomach and began setting up her rifle. The whisper assembled quickly in her practiced hands. Barrel, stock, scope, power cell. Each component clicked into place with satisfying precision. When she was done, she had a weapon capable of killing anything in the galaxy. She pressed her eye to the scope and began scanning the valley. Nothing moved except the wind. Any sign of the target? She asked. Negative. Satellites lost track of it about 2 hours ago. The creature seems to know when it's being watched. Ben's voice was tense. It's smart, Lucy. Really smart. I know. She adjusted her position slightly, making herself more comfortable. That's why I'm not going to look for it. I'm going to wait for it to come to me. Hours passed. On the observation deck of the orbiting station, the alien counselors grew restless. They were used to battles that involved armies and explosions. This strange human tactic of lying motionless on a rock made no sense to them. Is she sleeping? Ambassador Drexel demanded. What is she doing? High Counselor Mira studied the screen with fascination. She is waiting. Waiting for what? For the right moment. Lucy heard none of this. Her entire world had narrowed down to the view through her scope and the sound of her own breathing. She had entered a state that experienced snipers called the zone. Her thoughts were clear. Her body was still. Her heartbeat had slowed to a steady rhythm. Waiting was an art. Most creatures could not do it properly. They grew bored, distracted, impatient. They shifted their weight, made small sounds, released scents that predators could detect. But Lucy had trained herself to become like stone. She could lie in the same position for 12 hours without moving. She could ignore hunger, thirst, cold, pain. She could wait forever. This was the human way. This was how her ancestors had conquered a death world. Not through strength or speed, but through patience that bordered on madness. The sun of this system moved across the sky. Shadows lengthened and shifted. The toxic wind continued to howl. At hour 4, Lucy noticed something. A pattern in the rocks below had changed. She had memorized the landscape when she first arrived, cataloging every stone and shadow. Now, one of those stones was different. It was in the wrong place. She did not move. She did not even blink. Ben, she whispered. I think I found it. Where? About 2.5 kilometers out. It's hiding in the rock formation on the eastern slope. She made a tiny adjustment to her scope. It's disguised itself, covered its body with dust and debris. If I hadn't been watching that exact spot, I never would have noticed. Ben's voice was tight with excitement. Can you get a shot? Not yet. It's not moving, and I can't see the weak point from this angle. Lucy considered her options. I need to wait for it to stand up. And if it doesn't, then I'll wait longer. More hours passed. The counselors on the observation deck had stopped mocking. They watched in silence as the human woman lay motionless on the black rocks, staring at a spot that looked empty to their sensors. How does she know it's there? One of them whispered. I don't know, Mira replied. But look at her vital signs. Her heartbeat is completely steady. She shows no signs of stress or fatigue. It's like she's become part of the landscape. At hour 7, the HFY moved. It rose from the rocks like a demon emerging from hell. 4 meters tall, with 6 limbs and a body covered in bioorganic armor that gleamed like wet bone. Its eyes numbered 6, arranged in a circle around its head, giving it vision in all directions. Lucy had seen the pictures, the videos, the reports from survivors who had watched it kill. But nothing had prepared her for seeing the creature in person. It radiated wrongness, a sense of primal threat that made her lizard brain scream at her to run. She did not run. She did not move. She barely breathed. The HFY stretched its limbs and turned its head slowly, scanning the landscape. It was looking for something. Perhaps it sensed that it was being watched. Perhaps some ancient instinct was warning it of danger. Lucy kept her eye pressed to the scope. Her finger rested gently on the trigger. I see it, she whispered. Beginning final approach calculations. The hunt had truly begun. The HFY stood in the valley like a king surveying its domain. 300 years of killing had made it confident. 300 years of victory had made it careless. It feared nothing because nothing had ever given it reason to fear. But something was different today. The creature's 6 eyes swept across the landscape, searching for a threat it could not identify. Its massive body was tense, its claws digging into the black rock beneath its feet. Every instinct it had developed over centuries of hunting was screaming at it now. Something was watching. 3 kilometers away, Lucy Grant lay perfectly still. Her eye was pressed to the scope of her rifle. Her breathing was so slow that her chest barely moved. Her heartbeat had dropped to 35 beats per minute, a level that would have worried doctors back on Earth. Target is in the open, she whispered into her comm. Beginning calculations. Ben's voice came back immediately. Wind speed at your position is 12 kilometers per hour. Coming from the northwest. Temperature is -40 degrees. Gravity is 1.3 times Earth standard. Lucy processed the information automatically. Her scope had sensors that measured these variables. But Ben's confirmation helped her double-check. At this distance, even a small error could mean the difference between a perfect kill and a complete miss. Adjusting for wind, she murmured. Compensating for gravity drop. Distance to target is 2,847 meters. Almost 3 kilometers. A shot that most snipers would call impossible. On the observation deck, the alien counselors watched with a mixture of disbelief and fascination. Their cameras showed 2 images side by side. One displayed the terrifying form of the HFY standing in the valley. The other showed the tiny human woman lying on the rocks. Her rifle pointed at what seemed like nothing. The distance is too great, Ambassador Drexel said. Even our most advanced targeting systems would struggle to hit a target that small at that range. High Counselor Mira said nothing. Her tendrils had stopped glowing entirely, which happened only when she was experiencing extreme concentration. In the valley, the HFY began to move. It walked slowly across the rocky ground, its 6 legs carrying its massive body, with surprising grace. Its head continued to turn left and right, searching for the invisible threat. Lucy tracked its movement through her scope. The creature was smart, she realized. It knew something was wrong. It was trying to present a difficult target, moving unpredictably, and keeping its armored plates facing outward. But Lucy had been watching for 7 hours. She had memorized the creature's behavior. She had identified patterns in its movement that even the creature itself was not aware of. It stops every 30 seconds to scan the horizon, she said softly. When it stops, it always turns to face the same direction. East. Why east? Ben asked. I don't know. Habit, maybe, or instinct. Lucy's finger tightened slightly on the trigger. But when it turns east, the weak point in its armor is exposed. For about 2 seconds. 2 seconds? Ben's voice was worried. Lucy, that's not much time. It's enough. She waited. Her body was completely still, but her mind was racing through calculations. Wind speed, gravity, distance, target movement. She had made thousands of shots in her career, but none like this. The fate of millions depended on her hitting a target the size of a fist from 3 kilometers away. The HFY continued walking. 20 meters, 30 meters. It was moving toward a cluster of rocks that would provide cover. It's going to hide, Ben warned. If it reaches those rocks, you'll lose the shot. I know. Lucy's voice was calm. But it will stop first. It always stops. Sure enough, the creature paused. Its massive head began to turn. Lucy exhaled slowly, releasing all the tension from her body. Her finger found the perfect position on the trigger. Through the scope, she could see the creature's armored plates shifting as it moved. The head turned east. The weak point appeared, a gap in the armor, just below the primary brainstem. Small and dark and vulnerable, Lucy squeezed the trigger. The railgun discharged with barely a sound, just a faint electromagnetic hum that was immediately swallowed by the howling wind. The tungsten projectile left the barrel at 17 kilometers per second, crossing the distance to the target faster than the eye could follow. The HFY never saw it coming. The round punched through the gap in its armor like a hot needle through cloth. It shattered the creature's spinal column, destroyed its primary brain, and exited through the back of its skull in a spray of dark ichor. For one eternal moment, the galaxy's apex predator stood frozen. Its 6 eyes were wide with something that might have been surprise. Its claws were still extended, ready to fight an enemy that was nowhere to be seen. Then it fell. The massive body collapsed forward, crashing into the black rocks with a sound like thunder. Dust and debris exploded into the air. The ground shook from the impact, and then there was silence. On the observation deck, chaos erupted. Counselors screamed in disbelief. Some jumped from their seats. Others simply stared at the screens, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Did she hit it? Someone shouted. Is it dead? The camera zoomed in on the creature's body. It lay motionless in the valley, its armor cracked and broken where the projectile had struck. Dark fluid pooled beneath its shattered skull. Confirmed kill, a technician announced. The Kethval is dead. The observation deck exploded into noise. Species that had been enemies for millennia were hugging each other. Ancient warriors were weeping openly. High Counselor Mira's tendrils blazed with colors that had no name, emotions too complex for words. 3 kilometers away, Lucy Grant slowly lifted her head from the scope. "Target down," she said quietly. Ben's response came immediately. "Lucy, that was incredible. That was the most amazing shot I've ever seen. You actually did it." "Ever?" Lucy did not respond right away. She was looking at the distant body of the creature. A dark shape against the black rocks. 300 years of terror ended with a single piece of metal. "It's just physics," she said finally. "Point, shoot, hit. Come on, Ghost. You know it's more than that." Lucy began disassembling her rifle. Her hands were steady. Her expression was calm. But somewhere deep inside, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. "Maybe," she admitted. "But let's keep that between us. The galaxy doesn't need to know how hard that actually was." She packed the rifle into its case and began the long walk back to the extraction point. Behind her, the body of the Kethval lay still and silent. Finally at peace, the nightmare was over. The news spread across the galaxy like fire across dry grass. Within hours, every inhabited world knew what had happened. The Kethval, the unkillable monster that had terrorized civilization for 3 centuries, was dead, and it had been killed by a human. Not an army, not a fleet of warships, not some ancient weapon or forbidden technology. Just one woman with a rifle, lying on a rock in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to pull a trigger. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Lucy Grant returned to the orbital station above Vareth Prime to find the docking bay filled with aliens. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, crowded into every available space. They were waiting for her. When the door of the UES Nightfall opened and Lucy stepped out, the crowd erupted into cheers. Species that could not even breathe the same air were standing side by side, united in celebration. Tentacles waved. Claws clicked. Bioluminescent bodies flashed with joy. Lucy stopped at the top of the ramp, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. She was still wearing her tactical suit, still carrying her rifle case. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes moved constantly, scanning the crowd like she was looking for threats. Ben appeared behind her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Relax, Ghost. They're not going to attack you. They want to thank you." "I don't need thanks," Lucy said quietly. "I was just doing my job." But the crowd had other ideas. They surged forward, surrounding her with bodies and voices. Aliens she had never met were trying to touch her, speak to her, express gratitude in languages she could not understand. High Counselor Mira pushed through the crowd, her tall form creating a path. Her tendrils were glowing bright gold, a color that indicated deep respect. "Lucy Grant of Earth," she said formally. "The Galactic Council wishes to honor you for your incredible service. You have ended a nightmare that lasted 300 years. You have saved countless lives. What reward would you ask of us?" The crowd fell silent, waiting for her answer. Lucy thought for a long moment. She could ask for anything. Wealth beyond imagination. Planets of her own. Technology that would advance Earth by centuries. The grateful galaxy would give her whatever she wanted. "I don't want rewards," she said finally. "I didn't do this for glory or treasure." Mira's tendrils flickered with confusion. "Then why did you do it?" Lucy considered the question carefully. The crowd leaned forward, desperate to hear her answer. "Where I come from, there's an old saying," she said. "If something needs to be done, someone has to do it. That's what humans do. We see a problem, and we solve it. Not because we're the strongest or the fastest or the smartest, but because we refuse to accept that something is impossible." She gestured toward the window, where the distant shape of Calyx 7 was visible against the stars. "Your galaxy had given up. You had tried everything you could think of. And when nothing worked, you decided the creature was unkillable. But that word doesn't mean anything to humans. Everything can be killed. Everything has a weakness. You just have to be patient enough to find it. Ambassador Drexel pushed forward. His metallic face no longer showed contempt. Instead, it showed something that might have been respect. Your species is remarkable, he admitted. We Drexians pride ourselves on being warriors. But what you did, that was something different. Something we don't have a word for. 2. Lucy looked at him calmly. We call it hunting. Not fighting. Not battling. Hunting. It's what our ancestors did for millions of years before we invented civilization. We tracked prey across continents. We waited for days in harsh conditions. We developed patience that most species would consider insanity. She shrugged slightly. That instinct never went away. We just found new things to hunt. Mira stepped closer, her tendrils dimming to a thoughtful blue. I have studied many species in my long life. I thought I understood what made each of them dangerous. The Drexians have their strength, the Valorians have their technology. The Celestines have our collective intelligence. She paused. But humans, you are something new. We're not that special, Lucy said. We're just very stubborn. No. Mira shook her head slowly. You are much more than that. You come from a world that should have killed you. Instead, you conquered it. You developed the ability to wait forever, to plan without emotion, to strike without warning. These are not the traits of prey animals. These are the traits of apex predators. The crowd murmured in agreement. Lucy noticed that some of the aliens were looking at her differently now, not with gratitude, but with something else. Something that might have been fear. Ben noticed it too. Hey, we're on the same team here, he said quickly. I know, Mira said softly. But I think the galaxy is only beginning to understand what humanity truly is. She turned to face the crowd. For centuries, we ignored the humans. We thought they were too young, too primitive, too weak to matter. We were wrong. They are none of those things. They are patient. They are precise. They are persistent. And when they decide something needs to die, they make it happen. She turned back to Lucy. This is both wonderful and terrifying. Please tell your people that the galaxy wishes to be their friend, not their enemy. Lucy finally allowed herself a small smile. I'll pass that message along. The celebration continued for hours after that. Lucy was passed from one group of aliens to another, each wanting to hear her story, to touch the rifle that had killed the unkillable beast. She answered their questions politely but briefly, clearly eager to escape the attention. Finally, as the crowd began to thin, she found herself standing alone by a window. The stars stretched out before her, countless points of light representing worlds she had never visited. Ben joined her, carrying 2 drinks. You okay? Lucy accepted one of the drinks but did not taste it. I'm fine. Just thinking. About what? She looked out at the galaxy for a long moment before answering. About what comes next. The Kethvol is dead. That's good. But now every species in the galaxy knows what humans can do. They know that we're dangerous. She paused. Some of them will want to be our friends. Others will see us as a threat. Either way, things are going to change. Ben nodded slowly. You think there will be trouble? Maybe. Probably. Lucy finally took a sip of her drink. But that's a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, I just want to rest. She turned away from the window and began walking toward the ship. The rifle case hung from her shoulder, a reminder of what she had accomplished. Behind her, the galaxy continued to spin. Billions of beings celebrated the death of a monster. And somewhere in the darkness, the name Lucy Grant was being spoken with wonder and fear. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy. Nothing would ever be the same.